What's going on, guys? Shane here with Adam Lerner back at his gym, A4 Fitness in West LA, and this video is going to be a little bit different. Since the dawn of fightTIPS, there's been a debate. When throwing your hook, should it be palm in or palm down? And Adam and I agree on a lot of things, and I think this is the one that we disagree on, so we're going to have a little debate here back and forth. How do we get this started? All right, I'm going to say this, that I think for maximum power, if I want to do damage, and if I have a free shot on someone and I can throw a left hook, I'm going palm down.
Okay.
And you disagree?
If you have a free shot. That's hard. You kind of preface that with if you have a free shot.
Well, you see, I prepared for this video.
Okay. So I think even if you have a free shot, you want everything as stable as possible. Okay. So I think that if your elbow is directly behind your wrist and directly behind your knuckles, that you're going to be nice and stable. And if that thumb is up, it's creating an external rotation, which also helps pull your scapula down and make you a little bit more stable from your shoulder, elbow, wrist, knuckles, everything nice and tight. Okay. That's sort of the base of it. It's just that you're a little more stable.
I agree that we should have the elbow behind the wrist, behind the hands. Right. The reason why I like palm down, if I were to demonstrate on the bag here, is because I like being able to focus on what knuckles that are actually landing.
Right.
If I have this free shot, now I understand why we would want to disperse it over all four knuckles for the sake of safety for my own hand. I'm not going to do as much damage. We have very small bones in our hands. But if I got this free shot, I want to hit with palm down so that I can hit with either these first two or even just this first one. I really like hitting all the way down this side.
Yeah, we talked about just the point of that knuckle, if you can get it to basically just stab them.
Yeah, it's all of my rotational power and it's concentrated into just one point into my opponent's chin. And
when we talked before, I gave you a lot of credit for the fact that the smaller the impact zone is, the smaller what you're landing with is, actually the more pounds per square inch you're landing, right? So in that sense, you're putting more pressure into that impact in that one little spot.
Yes, which is what I like about it. But if we're boxing, or I guess the argument would more so be if we're in MMA and if we got a 5-round fight, say, and I'm hitting that, I could easily break my hand. Yeah. And that wouldn't be the best.
Right. So one of my arguments is that if you're trying to land on one knuckle with this one bone that slides back here, right, into some other smaller bones that are all kind of mixed together, then if you miss slightly, if you don't land in a perfect alignment, like in other words, if you land on the side of a stick or the side of a branch instead of landing at the end of the stick or the end of the post, then that branch is actually going to snap.
Right.
Okay. So if I land and I'm throwing a left hook, and instead of landing right there, I land right there, that most likely is going to break. And I've actually done that throwing a right hand by landing only on this knuckle in a street fight on a cheekbone when I was 15 years old. And you can see by the slight curve in my hand on this side versus this side that didn't go so well.
Down here, the boxer's fracture.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I hear you, and I don't disagree with that. The one thing that I've talked about in videos and I've watched and studied other fighters do is I've noticed, depending on range, they change what they throw. Yeah. So what I usually teach is if it's in close, then we can go palm in, right? Nice, real tight one, I'm going here.
Yeah.
Once it's a little bit further away and I want to hit with the correct part of the knuckles and not this part of my hand, that can happen if I do that. So that's when I start to turn it so that I'm hitting with the knuckles. Of course, I got to be careful not to hit the thumb.
Right.
And then I've also noticed that some people, this I don't agree with, but if it's really far away, to make sure that they hit with the knuckles, they go pound out.
And you'll see what happened when you did that is when you turn it all the way over, it's really hard to keep that elbow in line with your shoulder and in line with your wrist and knuckles, which means that we're throwing a punch that's out of alignment, which means to actually get ideal power on this punch, we would have to start traveling at a slight downward angle, which would work if you're triple G and you're trying to, change that angle and actually land over the top of a high guard, actually knock somebody out like that.
Yeah.
But that's a rare and unique scenario. Ideally, we want everything in that one line. If it's traveling perpendicular to the ground, then we want every joint ideally to be perpendicular to the ground as much as possible. Now the range thing, as far as like if I'm throwing the punch far away from the bag or close to the bag, far away from the opponent or close to the opponent, I actually have the exact opposite view. In a way, I actually throw almost all my hooks with my thumb up, palm in, whether it's long or whether it's short. But the difference is the way that I see the long one is actually if I extend and I turn my knuckles in, I'm more likely to land on my thumb. This is also actually something that I've done in sparring years ago. I actually sprained my thumb twice because I turned it over a little too early. I believe if you want to turn it a little bit, it should be at or just through impact if you want to turn it slightly, and the elbow will remain in position. But if you turn it too early, you end up sometimes landing either on that thumb or maybe on that knuckle that you said. But if I land it too long on that knuckle, now I'm landing on that branch at an angle instead of landing on the end of the post or the end of the branch.
Got it.
Right?
Got it.
So it makes it more likely to break either this bone here, just behind that index finger, or your thumb.
How about curling or bending the wrist in? Now I notice Fedor Emelianenko, in fact, he's taught this at seminars where he says he intentionally turns it in,
Right.
and he often throws haymaker type shots
Right.
to make sure that this is reinforced. So he's kind of squeezing the forearm muscles to reinforce the wrist, and then he often uses this to go into hip throws, headlocks, that kind of thing.
So the wrist angle thing is something that actually one of my first coaches, who's actually in the Hall of Fame, in the Boxing Hall of Fame, he also believes in a slight tilt of the wrist.
Yeah.
For me, again, I just want a straight line. Okay. So if I start tilting, now I'm depending on what you said was a circular punch for Fedor. He throws all looping punches. Okay. So now he is actually depending on that angle of impact being at that circular angle, and that'll be fine. But now as soon as I miss and I land on the inside again, and my wrist is bent here, it's going to fold it back because it's already in an unstable or not so straight position. Or if I land it too far to the end and it comes short, it's going to fold it in, and then I'm going to have a problem there. I want my wrist to be as stable and straight as possible with all those bones aligned.
Or you could just go palm,
in the best straight
you could
line,
just go
yeah.
palm down and avoid all those altogether, because this is the correct way of throwing. No, I don't know. I would just say give it a try, guys. But ultimately, right, it's up to the person.
Absolutely. Whatever works best for you and whatever you think is the most effective way to throw it in, really everybody's going to have their own individual way. Whether you're shooting a jump shot or swinging a baseball bat, everybody has their way. And there have been people over history that have hit 500 home runs with their feet together and 500 home runs with their feet really wide.
Right.
And so there are definitely variations. For me, with the left hook, I want to do the thing that will most consistently land the way I want it to. And I feel like throwing with the thumb up and flush on the knuckles is the most consistent way to land it repeatedly, effectively, and hurt people. And we always talk about history. In this gym, we talk about history, and we talk about those people that came before us that were really effective and that are in the Hall of Fame or having a lot of success right now. What did they do? And if you look at Mike Tyson, or you look at Oscar De La Hoya, or you look at guys that were known for hook knockouts, left hook knockouts, 9 out of 10 of them threw with the thumb up. So I'm just going to copy the guys that are in the Hall of Fame.
I like it. No, I think for me too, I still, in sparring, I still do palm in. It's like when I consciously think about it, if I'm specifically going for that power shot, then I go palm down. One last question for you. Bare knuckle training, yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything is a process of progressive adaptation when it comes to, like, should I be abusing my body? Well, yeah, you get stronger if you abuse your body, but you don't get stronger going and throwing a technically perfect punch with a whole bunch of power on a hand that has never hit a hard bag without a glove on.
Right.
You're going to break your hand, or you're going to do a lot of damage to your hands. So if you're going to bare knuckle train, it's like any other progressive adaptation. I'm not going to go bench press 400 pounds the first time I do bench press, because it's going to break my whole body, right? I'm not going to be able to get it off my chest.
Right.
It's going to go right through me. But if I start at 50 pounds, and then the next month 60, and the next month 70, then who knows, maybe I get a little bigger and stronger, I might eventually bench press 400 pounds. If you're going to bare knuckle train, I would look at it the same way. Hit the bag at 30%. If the next day you're not super sore, you feel okay, then hit the bag at 40%, or the week after, and then 50, and then 60 and 70, and eventually you'll find yourself able to hit that bag at 100%. I know my hands adapted a lot over the 17 years that I was boxing.
Cool. Well, at least we do agree on that.
Yeah.
All right. There we go, guys. Click the link in the description below to check out Adam's channel. And if you're in the West LA area, come check out the gym. Great gym. Boxing, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, strength and conditioning. He's got it all here. But until then, be sure to subscribe to get the fight tips before your opponent does. I'm Shane, and this is Adam Lerner. Fight tips for the underdogs.